Hello guys, this is Dean from Achilles Drill. In this particular video, we're going to talk about some common embryology steeplechase questions associated with the development of the gut tube and the GIT organs. In the course of this lecture, we'll mention some common embryological anomalies associated with this stage of development, and of course lay emphasis on the ones you just won't escape in your next steeplechase exam. Just stick with me to the end. So we'll be starting at the very beginning, and that is the foregut. Okay, so the foregut actually give rise to structure including the esophagus, the proximal part of the duodenum, the stomach. All those structures are derivative of the foregut. And then from the midgut, you have the small intestine, the different part of the small intestine, starting from the distal part of the duodenum to the ileum, the cecum, the colon, and so on and so forth. And then from the hindgut, you have the distal part of the colon, the large intestine, being a derivative of it. And all those different structures, they are all collectively a part of the gut tube. Okay, so and we just want to take them one by one and emphasize on the ones that are common areas for your steeplechase exam. Okay, so starting at the very beginning, the foregut, of which the stomach is a derivative of this part. Okay, so the stomach, as you can see right here, has actually been molded. It is molded right here, and this stomach comes with an anomaly. Can you by any chance pinpoint what the anomaly is right here? Can you see any malformation around here? Yes, there's a malformation there. There's an anomaly there. That space is meant to be wider than that, but there's a kind of closing, or there's a kind of occlusion in that area already. Okay, and that is a condition. It is called pyloric stenosis. Before I go into that, let me show you this. This is also one condition associated with pyloric stenosis. Okay, so we're having it printed on a sheet of paper here, like I explained. In embryology, sometimes rather than an actual model, you could have it printed on a sheet of paper and you just be asked to identify what the condition is or what is the reason for the condition. So there is a baby currently vomiting. This is actually projectile vomiting, and there is a reason for that. Let's use this beautiful picture to answer all the questions, starting with this. The model that we saw earlier was something like this, okay? And that model had this area closed up. Maybe after surgery, then they can open it up right here. But before then, the stenosis is there, and that condition is simply called pyloric stenosis. So if you have this model right here, and you're asked to identify what condition is this, identify the condition here. Very simple, pyloric stenosis. The next question will be, what is the embryological basis, or what is the embryological reason for the condition? Always read your questions more than once if you can. Yeah, I know steeplechase 10 seconds, 20 seconds, but what's the gain if you don't read your question right and you eventually miss it? Now, still take your time to read the question and then get at what they are asking, what is required of you. So sometimes the question is not what is the condition, the question could be what is the reason for the condition. So this is pyloric stenosis, and the reason for it is actually hypertrophy of the pyloric sphincter. Okay, hypertrophy of this pyloric sphincter. So usually in other stenosis associated with the GIT tract, often they are due to error in recanalization of the tube as a whole. But in the case of this pyloric stenosis, it is actually due to hypertrophy. Okay, hypertrophy of the sphincter itself. And this vomiting right here is called projectile vomiting. And this form of vomiting is actually unique in the sense that it's not just the typical kind of vomiting in which maybe the baby just vomit out the content of the stomach. In this case, it is forceful, like the contents of the stomach actually come out in a very forceful manner. That's why it's called a projectile vomiting. It really comes out with force, and the reason for that is that occlusion, that stenosis, that hypertrophy that we're having in the pyloric sphincter. That's the reason for it. But one unique thing about this kind of vomiting is that it will be non-bilous. Okay, it will be without bile. I didn't mean the stenosis post duodenum, like after the duodenum, then you expect bile to be there, because normally the biliary apparatus, all of them, they release their contents into the GIT tract at the level of the duodenum. Okay, so any form of stenosis beyond that part, beyond that place, then we expect the vomiters to contain bile. But in this case of pyloric stenosis, it would actually be non-pilous. Are we good? So that's maybe an additional question if you're asked this form of vomitous, pilous or non-pilous, expect it to be non-pilous. Are we good? So that's answering the question we had right here. The condition is pyloric stenosis. Embryological reasoning for it is hypertrophy of the pyloric sphincter. And then the baby we're having right here, the condition is actually projectile vomiting. Okay, sorry. And the embryological basis is hypertrophy of the pyloric sphincter. Okay, this picture, if you are asked, what is this? Projectile vomiting. Normally, what's causing it? Pyloric stenosis. Now, what's the embryological reason for pyloric stenosis? Hypertrophy of the pyloric sphincter. Does that make sense? So that's basically just it. Let's go to our next model now. And we're now in the level of the midgut. Okay, we're not here in the midgut. This is actually something associated with the duodenum. Maybe that picture is not too clear to you, but let me show you a textbook picture around here. So that condition that we had printed right there is actually duodenal atresia. Okay, so now there are two things here. There is duodenal atresia, and then there is also duodenal stenosis. Atresia is complete occlusion, while stenosis is more like a narrowing in his own case. Let me erase this mess so you can see them better. This is atresia, and right here is stenosis. Atresia, there is occlusion, there is non-communication in a way, and then stenosis is just narrowing in the canal. Are we good with that? So let's go back to our model. What is the condition? Duodenal atresia. And actually, where specifically does this occur? Now let me show you that. Stenosis and atresia, they actually happen in kind of different places along the duodenum. Take a look at this slide. Okay, so duodenal stenosis, which is one that involves narrowing, okay, which is actually dating due to error in recanalization. As a matter of fact, both of them, both stenosis and atresia, are due to error in recanalization of the tube. Okay, canalization is meant to happen once the tube are getting matured. They are meant to develop a lumen, but if that doesn't happen, if there's an error, that's when you have stenosis or atresia. Okay, now in the case of duodenal stenosis, it's actually due to incomplete recanalization around the third and fourth parts, while in case of atresia, it's due to complete occlusion of the lumen around the second and third parts. In this case, second and what? Second and third parts. And both of them are actually due to error in canalization, error in recanalization rather. So that's what I want you to take note regarding that. And the clinical presentation for this is also usually bilous vomiting. Okay, the vomitors will involve bile because it's now post the level in which the gallbladder and the rest of the biliary apparatus are opening their contents into the duodenum. And then there is also a double bubble sign on an ultrasound or an x-ray. Okay, so that's regarding the duodenum. Now take a look at this. We're at the level of the midgut. Okay, this is a condition also printed on a sheet of paper. The question will be, what is the condition, or what is the embryological basis for the anomaly? Now let me get you a better picture. This is that same thing we had earlier. The condition is gastroschisis. Okay, now the embryological reason for gastroschisis is a linear defect in the anterior abdominal wall. The anterior abdominal wall is meant to be strong enough to kind of withhold the contents of the midgut, the intestine, the stomach, and many other structures within the abdomen. But if the anterior abdominal wall is not strong enough, if there is a defect there, then there will be extrusion of the abdominal contents, and that's what is called gastroschisis. All right. So, and then right here is another relating condition. Don't forget, we're already in anomalies associated with the development of the midgut. You know, the midgut starts from the level of the intestine, the colon, and the likes. Okay, so omphalocele is also another one. That's this one. In the case of omphalocele, there's not really that there is a complete extrusion of the abdominal content. Instead, there will be a kind of membrane across the abdominal content right there. So this is not gastroschisis. That's the difference between them. Gastroschisis, the entire organ is outside, but in omphalocele there's a membrane along their surface right there. And omphalocele arises when the midgut doesn't return back into the abdomen at the expected time. I don't know if you're familiar with the midgut reduction in the midgut hernia. That usually happens when the midgut is returning back into the abdomen. If that returning back doesn't take place, then omphalocele is bound to happen. Okay, so those conditions occur and they are anomalies associated with the development of the gut tube. Lastly, I want you to take a look at this. What is this? Usually you also find it in a sheet of paper printed out. The condition is volvulus, right? And usually occurs due to twisting. Okay, the thing is, there is twisting of the intestine, and it arises due to malrotation of the gut tube. Okay, maybe as the gut tube is returning back into the abdomen, it's meant to return in a specific manner. So if it doesn't do that, then there could be twisting, and that twisting is called volvulus, which is dangerous. It means contents of the GIT won't be able to pass through as expected. All right, so that's another condition right there. And right now, I think we're actually good to go to talk about the hind gut. And usually in the hind gut, the hind gut involves the left half of the transverse colon, the descending colon, together with the sigmoid colon, the rectum, the anal canal, and the likes. Okay, all those different structures are derivatives of the hind gut, and usually anomalies too can set in around there. Some of these anomalies usually in form of fistula. Okay, a fistula is an abnormal linkage between two organs. Okay, so atresia, again, remember what atresia is: a complete occlusion. All right, while stenosis is narrowing of the canal. So fistula is very much associated with the development of the hind gut. It's an anomaly associated with that region. Usually there is a malconnection, an abnormal linkage between structures of the GIT tract, maybe the rectum, maybe the colon. There is a malconnection between those areas and then the urogenital structures. That involves the bladder, the urethra, and then the genital, maybe the vagina, and any other structures right there. So there is meant to be differentiation. They are meant to be different from this. We don't expect any linkage whatsoever, but then it still happens. As you can see right here, the picture we're having in this model, this printed sheet of paper, they ask you to identify A. Let me get my pen. They ask you to identify A and B. A right here is actually a linkage between the rectum here and the urethra. This one is a linkage between the rectum and the bladder. Let me show you a more fanciful picture for that. Okay, so the condition here is recto-urethral fistula, a linkage between the rectum and what? The urethra. Why this one is recto-vesical, a linkage between the rectum and the bladder. Vesica means bladder, vesicle, and then urethra, and then recto means rectum. Okay, so just use that to remember it. An abnormal linkage between them can form a fistula. Recto-urethra in the case of the rectum and the urethra, recto-vesica in the case of the rectum and the bladder. Are we good? There are still other forms. Take a look at this beautiful diagram. You can pause the video to maybe skim through it. We have congenital anal stenosis, in which there's narrowing of the anal canal proper, anal membrane atresia. Okay, we have that. We also have anagenesis, when the anal membrane fails to rupture. It doesn't even rupture. So anus is not even formed in this case. It's also called imperforate anus. I think there is still another model showing that specifically. Okay, so that's anagenesis. Then we have an erector atresia. You already know what atresia is by now. Can you come down here? And atresia means a complete occlusion. So it ends in a blind sac. Okay, there is one right here, and then the sac is continued. There is a complete occlusion in the area. That's atresia. And then see another condition right here, recto-perineal fistula. Can you guess what it means? Recto and perineal. An abnormal leakage between what? Tell me now. The rectum, perineal meaning what? The perineum. Okay, so an abnormal linkage right there is a recto-perineal fistula. And then recto-vaginal fistula is an abnormal linkage between what? The rectum and the vagina. Okay, so these are different forms of fistula that can happen, or different forms of anomalies that can take place, that can present in the development of the hind gut. Okay, so and then take a look at our next slide. Here is another model. This is a printed paper. It's not too clear. Where that's actually the anus, and well, the anus is not even defined here. So the anus is meant to be somewhere here. So this condition is imperforate anus, and it is a commonly asked question. The question could be, what is the condition? Imperforate anus or anagenesis. Okay, let me get my pen for that. Anagenesis. And what is the embryological reason for it? Can you remind me? Failure of the rupture of the ana membrane. If the ana membrane fails to rupture, then anus won't be formed. Anagenesis. Imperforate anus. Are we good with that? So these are common anomalies associated with the development of the gut. So trust me, there are still a number of them, and you might want to visit them on your own, but these are just the ones that are frequently asked, and I really want you to take note of each and every one of them. The foregut, the midgut, the hindgut, the different anomalies that can present from the level of the stomach. We have pyloric stenosis. To the duodenum, we have atresia and stenosis as well. And then we came to the level of the midgut. We talked about omphalocele, gastroschisis, volvulus. And then in the hindgut, there were a lot of them. Different forms of fistula, atresia, and the likes. Okay, so watch out for our next video, which will be on some common embryology steeplechase questions associated with the development of the lungs and the heart. You just don't want to miss that lecture. But for now, thank you for tuning in. The name is Dean. Ensure you like and subscribe, by the way. I'm not going to leave the house. Do have a lovely time.